um, polymer chain physics and various polymer models in terms of trying to understand the properties like mainly end-to-end distance and how different models can actually give rise to estimates. Okay, so then we can actually get nice qualitative and in terms of qualitative descriptions sometimes. Okay, so today in the same vein we will talk about very simple concepts, the kind of statistical parameters. Okay, so parameters using very simple arguments. Okay, so you know the molecule N-butane. Okay, so it has 4 carbons and okay, CH3, CH2, CH2, and CH3. Right. So it has carbon-carbon single bond. There are 3 single bonds along which the molecule can rotate. So that if you rotate or if you fix the geometry along these single bonds, so then you will have different conformations of the molecule. But not all conformations are equally stable. Okay, so their probability is different because their energies are different. So the most stable conformation is when these terminal CH3 groups are far away from each other. Okay, that's the most stable conformation. And other conformations are relatively less stable. So this conformation where the terminal CH3 groups are far away from each other is called transformation. So let's see if I have to represent this in this is called Newman projection, I think. Okay, so basically, so this is the outer circle is the 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say outer circle is second carbon, and then so if I represent the first carbon like this, okay, and the second carbon is dot, third carbon is the one behind, and there is another carbon which below. So this is the conformation which is trans. Okay. Trans, where actually the CH3 groups. I am denoting only the carbon atoms, 4 carbon atoms. So this is basically, let's say 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so the ones which are far away from each other. So this is trans. This is the most stable conformation. And but there are other stable conformations. So if you try to rotate along the C2C3 dihedral, okay, so you move CH3 on the terminal ones, so you'll get other stable conformations. What are the names of them? So one is this. Okay, so how much is the tangle? Gauche, right? Everyone is following me? Everyone can hear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So this is the trans. So where the dihedral is 180. Okay. So these are far away from each other. Okay. So there are 2 other conformations. Okay. They are slightly less stable than trans. Okay. So then what is their dihedral angles?
For the ghost conformation, they have 60-degree angle, and for
60 and 120.
And for the partially eclipsed, then 120.
Yes. So one is 60, the other one is
120.
120.
Okay. 60. So this is 180, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is 180. Okay. See the other ones? 60.
The ghost has 60.
Okay, so that is 60. right? And
Yes,
the
sir.
other one is
120.
okay. So is this
120.
sure? Okay, so these are called gauge conformations, right?
So one thing is that if it's 120, wouldn't it overlap with another hydrogen?
Sir, this is partially eclipsed, the 120 degree.
What about the 61?
61 is gauche.
Okay, and 120?
Partially eclipsed. Partially eclipsed.
But what about, let's say, if you take minus 60? Okay. So let's say instead of 60, if you take minus 60.
Yes, sir. Again, it is a gauche conformation.
Okay. So these are the two conformations. So we can call 1 and then 2. Okay. So these are two conformations which are different from each other. Okay. Because you are having the dihedral in one case, let's say clockwise, in another case anti-clockwise. Okay. 60 and minus 60. Okay. See, the other one, 121 is a different conformations where actually it's eclipsing with hydrogens. So that is less stable than gauche. Okay. So these are the most stable conformations. So if you represent this in energy terms, so the trans is the most stable. Okay, trans is most stable, and then next comes gauche 1 and gauche 2. Okay, let's say G1 and G2. Okay, so these are the three most stable conformations. The other ones are actually any other conformation is less stable than this. Of course, there is a small barrier between the interconversion of these states. Okay, and other ones are actually less stable. Okay, so these are the most stable. So let's say now, and these conformations will depend on basically one is the barrier and another is basically the energy difference. Okay, so let's say if you want to calculate the relative abundance of these molecules, how many are in gauche 1 or gauche 2, or how many are in trans? So then what we need to know is basically the energy difference between these two conformations. So that we can really put, let's say, G minus trans. Okay. So G1 and G2 are exactly similar. Okay. So they have identical energy. Okay. But they are different because in one case, so you have CH3 clockwise, in another case, let's say anti-clockwise, the angle is 60 or minus 60. So if we know this energy difference, then we can actually get the relative population of these molecules. Okay, so that we call probabilities. Okay, so relative abundance. Okay, so let's say probability of molecules which are in, let's say, gauche state. Okay, which are in gauche state. Okay, let's say gauche 1 versus molecules which are in trans state. So this is nothing but basically the energy difference between these states by a Boltzmann factor K. Okay, so this is the probability of the molecules or the relative abundance of the molecules which are in the gauche versus T. And the same thing applies for gauche 2 state. Okay, gauche 2 by probability. Okay, and the probability ratio between gauche 1 and gauche 2 is same. Okay, so probability of gauche 1 by gauche 2 is 1. Okay, because they have the relative abundance. Okay, relative abundance between these two states is same. But if you have to calculate with trans, so then you have to and delta G is okay, sorry, that should be negative.
A negative.
This is a negative. So basically the energy difference, so delta Eg is positive because this is larger than this always. So this is negative. So this term is smaller. So you always have population smaller in gauge states versus trans states. Okay. And if this energy is, let's say delta E is 0, so then this will be 1. So that's the case for this. So energy difference between these two is 0. So that's why relative abundance is 1. Okay. So this is kind of statistical approach now. So which talks about for any system. So in our case, the molecules. So which have conformational freedom, means that they can really exist in different conformations. And these conformations have different energy. Okay. So for a simple system like this, we can really estimate, because here you have only 3 possible states. And with that, out of those 2 states that have actually equal energy, these are called degenerate. G1 and G2 are degenerate. Okay. So let's say if we do a very simple, let's say calculation, okay. And sometimes we call the Boltzmann weight. Okay, let's say for a state I, okay, for a state I, so it could be any state, it could be gauge 1, 2, or 3, okay. So that's represented as small w and state I. So that weight is taken as e power minus e, the energy of that state, by k. Okay, so this is called Boltzmann weight. Okay, so let's say if we have to calculate a Boltzmann weights. Okay, so for this, let's say state ET and let's say state ET. Okay, or the trans state. Okay, for the trans state. Let's say if you have to calculate Boltzmann weight, that's W.
Sir, what about the partition function here?
I am coming there. Okay, so we'll talk about the weights. Then how do we use these weights to get the partition function? Because weights are important. Weights and energies are important. So to get the partition function. So let's say if you have to get for the trans state Boltzmann function. So let's say, and this depends on only 3 parameters: the energy of the state, and the Boltzmann constant, and the temperature at which we are talking about. So KT, if we talk about room temperature, so that's basically, let's say 298 Kelvin. So this is around like 0.6 kilocalorie. Okay, very simple parameter. It will be helpful if you remember this. At room temperature, KT is approximately 0.6 kilocalorie. Okay, so then at room temperature, we know what is KT. And so roughly, let's say if you assume we are interested in only relative populations. Okay, so if we know the energy of one population, so then we can actually scale that up with delta G. Right? So let's assume ET is 0. Okay, so let's say assume, because in the end we need only relative populations. Assume, let's say ET is 0. Okay, so then delta T will be the Boltzmann population for trans will be
1.
So let's, we are assuming this is 0. Okay, 1. So then this is 1. So let's say same now for let's say W. This is for trans. So let's say what will happen for gauge 1. Okay.
0.
Gauss 1 is also 0. Because we assume that this is 0. Okay, but then Gaussian energy cannot be 0, right? So that will be corresponding
e to the
Gauss
by 0.6
by kT, energy of Gaussian plus kT. Okay, so we need to know basically the energy difference between these two states. So that's roughly about, okay, so let's say half a kilogram. Okay. Let's say this is 0 and this is 0.5 kilo. Okay, kilocalorie per mole. So then your WT will be, so E power minus 0.5, okay, by 0.6. Okay, so that will be roughly about okay, 0.4. So these are the weights, and the same for Gauss 2 because the energy is exactly the same. So these are weights. Okay. So how this might be useful to calculate, let's say again, the relative ratio. So let's say now, if you want to calculate PG by probabilities in the trans state. So then weight in the trans by all possible weights of all energy states. Okay, so that's WT plus WG1 plus WG2. Okay, so that will be how much?
1 plus 2.
Okay, so that's 1 by 1 plus 0.4.
1.
So it will be something like
1.86.
0.5.
1 by 1.86.
So that's, let's say you can, so that's probability. This is really PE probability. Okay, and then similarly you can calculate for probabilities for the Gaussian. Is basically instead of the WT, you have to put WG1. So that will give you about okay, 0.23. Okay, 0.23, and this is same as Gauss 2. Okay, so of course in the end all probabilities, if you sum up, that should be 1. Okay, so trans state versus let's say Gauss 1 and Gauss 2. So if you sum up, so all will be okay 1. Okay, that's fine. So if we know the weights, then you can easily calculate either the relative abundances or the probabilities direct. Okay, so but however, so typically in very complex system where you have many states, okay, so sometimes you have 2 states having the same energy. Okay, so instead of that now, so you say instead of the Boltzmann weights W, okay, so this is Boltzmann weight. So you can actually account for the degeneracy. So if you multiply by the degeneracy, so the symbol typically used for, okay, so anyway, so in this case, it's basically you have, let's say 2WG, okay, R1/2. Okay, so this is called elementary weights. Okay, so Boltzmann weights for individual states. individual states. Okay, and elementary weights for different energies. Okay, so if you have many states having the same energy, so then you club them all together by the degeneracy. Okay, so degeneracy in the case of N-butane. So you have Gauche 1 and Gauche 2. So that's the degeneracy is 1. But if you happen to have multiple states, more than, let's say 2, let's say there are small n states. So then you multiply that n with that Boltzmann factor, okay, or the weight. So that will give the elementary weight for that energy state. So now, coming back, so how this might be useful to get, let's say, partition function, okay? So, okay, so this is denoted by a Q, okay? So this is nothing but, so if you have, let's say, many different states, so for all those states, okay, so you sum up the Boltzmann factors, E, I by Q, T. Okay, R, basically this is nothing but sum of Wi as well. R, sometimes we can actually define the same thing, sum over the elementary weights. Okay, sum over the elementary weights. So then you have all possible energy states. Okay, and so that's yeah, E power E by KT. Okay, and but here, so what's important is that so the degeneracy. Okay, so basically this is C of E. Okay. Right.
Sir, can I ask one question, sir?
Yeah.
Sir, G1 and G2 state both are energetically same.
Similar, yeah, identical.
So can we cannot physically separate them?
No.
So why we are considering G1 and G2 different?
No. So conformations wise, their structural properties are different, right?
Okay.
Structure means that you can really separate G1 and G2, but however, so energetically they are identical. Okay. Or imagine a more complex system. So let's say if you have again long polymer chain. Okay. Imagine, let's say if you have
chiral molecule.
Chiral molecule, yes. So then both right-handed and left-handed,
will be different.
They are mirror images, but they have identical energies. And the property that they are non-superimposable mirror images means that they are different states, but they have the same energy. So when it comes to statistical thermodynamics, okay, or statistical mechanics, so we are looking at mainly the conformational entropy and the energy. So clubbing all the states which have the same energy, because they get populated to the same probabilities, okay, or they have the same relative abundances with respect to other states. So clubbing that would be, simplifies the treatment. Okay. So let's say, so this is basically the partition function. Okay. So let's say, how do we define average energy of a molecule? Okay. So average energy of a molecule. Okay. So let's see that average, how is that Q is related to average energy. Average energy of a molecule, let's say E bar, okay, is nothing but summation of summation of, let's say, all possible energy states. Okay, so multiplied by KT versus all the sum of the Boltzmann. Okay, so that's how actually energy of the molecule is defined, right? Okay, so you can define in terms of the states. Okay, if it is n states, you can define like this. Or you can actually, in terms of the energies as well, you can bring in the Boltzmann factor. Okay, so this is, let's see, equation 1. Okay, and this is equation 2. Okay, so let's see if you differentiate equation 1 with respect to temperature. So what do you get? Okay, so what do we get? Into n minus I by kT. Okay, then you have minus EI by kT and minus 1 by T, right? So experiment do Q by dou T only temperature. So the same factor E, and then you differentiate this, then you will get minus E by KT, and then you differentiate with respect to.
Sir, I have one question.
Yeah.
Sir, equation 1 is for a particular state where there are n conformations. That's why I is equal to 1 to n. Equation 1. Okay, and then we are taking the average and we are multiplying with the degeneracy factor for the in equation 1.
This, okay, these two are equivalent to each other. So in one case, we are summing up all individual states. Okay. So then sometimes we get two terms with the same energy. Here we are writing that in a different sum where if the energy of different states is identical, so then we are writing that multiplied by the degeneracy. In the end, these two terms are identical to each other. We are only just combining some terms here. Okay.
Sorry, sir. Can you repeat like EI like E1, E2, and E3? What will be those states? E1, E2, and E3. What conformation of the molecule? Sorry.
For example, let's say in the case of N-butane. So this is let's say E1 is trans.
Okay, for trans.
E3 is Gauss 2.
Okay. Yes. Now fine.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So these are three different states. But now let's say then you have only two energy states for N-butane. So the first term will be trans. For trans, this value is 1. Then for the Gauss, we combine two terms, especially 2 into e power one of the Gaussian energies, because both are identical. Okay. The only thing is that remember here you have all possible states, but some of states are identical. So here you basically reduce that number.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So what is a let's say dou Q by dou T? What do we get? Yeah. So what do we get here?
1 by KT squared summation of E over its power minus EI by KT.
And this is EI term will be there inside. Okay. And T is independent. What do we get?
1 by KT square.
1 by T square. Right? T square. Sign will go off.
Sir, there will be a K.
The K. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, so now let's say this is equation 3. Okay, so let's say divide 3 by 1. 3 by 1. So then I get 1 over q, dou q by dou t. So because I'm dividing this by this on left hand side, on the right hand side, I divide RHS by this. Okay, so then by R square. And sigma e power minus I by k. Okay, so this I can write dou ln q by dou t. So that's nothing but 1 over q dou q by dou t. And this one, this looks like this average energy, right? Okay, so that's average energy by R T squared. Right? We can simplify. Energy, average energy is nothing but in terms of partition function. Okay, so if we know the partition function, then most of the properties of the molecule can be calculated very easily. So let's say if you have to calculate the average energy of the system, so then if you know the Q and at a given temperature, you can actually calculate this. Okay, so this will be kind of convenient sometimes to express any property in terms of the partition function. So once we know the partition function, then more or less we can actually calculate properties. For example, let's say the property which we measured end-to-end distance also can be expressed in terms of a partition function. Okay, so let's say, but this is a very simple system, right? N-butane. So let's say if we take a polymer of chain N, okay, polymer of chain length N. Okay, so there are N units of them, and N monomers are N monomers are there. Okay, so let's say polyethylene. Okay, so then it basically consists of many CH2 units. So more or less, let's say all are identical to each other, and the main conformational entropy comes from basically the change in the dihedrals around each CH2. Okay, right? So then if we know, let's say, energy of individual units, individual monomers, and also let's say the conformations of individual monomers. Okay. So because they are independent, for example, we are assuming very simple properties. Okay. So let's say every CH2 has freedom to exist in its own conformations. For example, let's say states like, let's say, trans and gauche and gauche. Each CH2 can actually have these conformations, just like what we have seen in N-butane. Only thing is that now the problem is much bigger than N equals to 4. So, and these states are actually independent from one unit to another unit, right? So this is very important. So if you have this independent unit, and each unit can have energies, let's say ET, E gauche 1, E gauche 2. Okay, so let's say if you take a configuration for a given configuration or conformation, so how do you define a given conformation? Basically, you go around every monomer and then its structural properties that gives the conformation and its energy. So every unit has energy, but the total molecules also has energy. All right. So then how do we get the elementary weight of this state, okay, or this conformation? Because once we have the elementary weights, the partition function is basically summation of all the elementary weights. So how do we get the elementary weight for a given conformation, where we are assuming that all individual monomers, okay, in that polymer can have independently change its conformation and also basically the energy, okay? But we are interested in the overall energy. So the energy of the overall energy of the molecule is nothing but the energy contributed by the individual units, right? So individual state can exist in this. Let's say for a given weight, okay? So let's say for a given conformation. So conformation means that there are n units, right? And all these n units will have different energies, okay? So, but they are in different states. Let's say third carbon can be in trans, but the fourth carbon can be in gauche 1, and let's say 17th carbon will be in gauche, etc. Or let's say third carbon can be in gauche 1 and 18th carbon will be in this. So you have all possible combinations. But when we say a given conformation, means that we are talking about the fixed geometries coming from all these things, okay? And sometimes you can have two conformations have the same energy, okay? Okay, the state can be different. State can be gauche 1 or gauche 2, but the energy will be this. So once we know, let's say kind of label individual units, okay, with numbers and their energies. So basically the conformation, the elementary weight from that is nothing but a product of the individual weights coming from individual monomers, okay? So for example, let's say for a given state, the elementary weight can be, so basically it's the product of all the units coming from all these things. That's basically n, 1 to n, all the individual units, and the corresponding, what's the energy state they are, okay? And multiplied by the Boltzmann, the degeneracy. Okay. So let's say if you have, so let's say if you have n unit is in, let's say ET, then it's basically ET. But let's say n plus 1 unit is in, say G1, then this is basically n plus 1 is basically G1. But they are independent from each other. Basically, then the configuration is nothing but a multiplication of this. So this is for one conformation. One conformation. Okay. But then, what's the partition function? Partition function is basically coming from all the conformation, all the possible conformation. So that's nothing but a summation of all these things. Okay. En by k. Okay, so here it's going from n to n, but this one is for all energies. Okay, all possible energies. Right, this is for configuration for one energy state. But this is for now, if you sum for all possible energies the molecule can take. Okay, so then this is the total partition function. But here, because they are independent units, so this basically sum over a product, we can actually now separate this into individual units. Okay, how we are going to do that is this. Okay, either you can write all possible energies, or you can actually write product of this. Okay, so where you can separate all the terms coming from the let's say monomer 1, and then corresponding weights. Okay, 1 e power minus p under kt, and then sum of monomer 2, and then all elementary weights coming from okay, so on and so forth. So only thing is that now we are separating all the terms into groups. Okay, so where all the terms which are grouped in, let's say in this parenthesis, belong to the monomer 1 in the polymer chain, multiplied by all the components coming from the monomer 2, and then so on and so forth. Okay, so this is possible because all are independent. If they are completely dependent, of course, then it will be wrong. So this is nothing but, so this is a partition function for Q1, and this is partition function for Q2, and so on and so forth. So Q is basically Q1 into Q2, Q3, okay, Qn. But this is a polymer where the units are identical. For example, let's say polyethylene. So then all these are identical. We are not assuming that the end units are slightly different, but we are assuming that they're very similar, given the polymer is large. So then this is nothing but, so Q1 kind of times N. The result is, for any system where you have independent monomers, all monomers are identical to each other, but they exist less, is nothing but so Q monomer, let's say power N. So interestingly now, so you don't have to really know the partition function of entire molecule. If you know the partition function for one unit, you can actually just raise to the power N or the size to the polymer. Then you can actually this interesting relation where the partition function of the entire molecule is nothing but raised to the N. So, okay, sometimes you treat the N units like 1 and N are different. So even if you bar them these two, so then it will be basically N minus. All the units which are in between are identical to each other, but they are independent because they have independent existence in terms of the conformations and energy states they can really take. For example, like the N-butane case. So then the partition function will be very useful. Okay, so in the coming class, so we will use this property, okay, to get, for example, like a helix formation. Okay, so if you take a polypeptide, okay, helical forming polypeptide. So then let's say helix means that we know the properties. It is, let's say alpha helix, you have II plus 4 contacts. So the dihedrals are actually fixed for all these amino acids, right? So helix forming means that they have a unique set of phi and psi. But if they are in random coil, then phi and psi are different. They don't have to really follow this. So let's say if the molecule is a helix forming peptide. Okay, so then individual peptides can switch from random coil to alpha helix, so that the helix propagates and in the end the molecule converts from a random coil state to an helix state. But this conversion happens at the individual amino acids. Okay, so then we can have a partition function. Okay, assuming that the individual monomers, either they are in the random coil state or the helix state. Okay, so then how actually we can use this partition function analogy to actually calculate the helix propensity of a molecule depending on, let's say, a randomly nucleated helix, okay, in the long polypeptide chain. So this treatment will be useful. Okay, so any questions?
Sir, can you explain this the part where you have taken the product of this partition functions, no?
Yes.
So
Okay.
for one conformation you have taken product, right? So why did you
Yeah.
take the product? Can you explain this once again?
Because they are independent, right? So in the independent, so you have actually many different units. Okay, so many different units. So you can write, let's say, the partition function. You can write assuming that each individual unit different, their energies are systematically, you can actually sum. Okay, so basically a polymer is sum of its units, right?
Yes.
So energy of a given conformation, you can really write energy of the individual units, but then sum, that's the sum of that state. But in this configuration, so you have each individual unit, okay, as for example, let's say 3 rotational states like this, but you don't know each one is which state it is. Randomly, they can be in trans, Gaussian, or Gaussian, okay, and weighed by their energy, their Boltzmann weights, okay, or the degenerates. So we are talking about for a given energy state, okay. So what is this? So this is simply, it comes, if you write down and then sum it up on all these things, you can actually separate the terms for a given energy. Okay, so that's basically for a given conformational state. So this is basically the elementary weight. Okay, but then you are summing up all those with all the energy states. Okay, this is only one energy state, right? Okay, if you take individual ones, monomers, it's easy, either here or here or here. But now imagine you take a dimer. Okay, if you take a dimer, so now how many possibilities you will have? Okay, so for monomer you have 3 possibilities. For the dimer, how many possibilities you have?
6.
I think it's 9.
Okay, 9 or 6. They are independent. Okay.
If they are
Let's
independent,
see,
then 9. 9 will be
Independent
there.
and 9.
9.
the first one is in here. The second one can be any of these. The first one is here. The second one of any of these. Means that now you have 9 possibilities for 2. The third one, if you have, again, so 9 into 3 is 27. Like this, you have everything can independently exist in all the conformations according to their Boltzmann weights. But what we are saying is that now suddenly you take a long polymer. So you can't really predict which monomer will be in which state. They have independently can exist all this, right? So you have to calculate for all these possibilities, okay, the Boltzmann weights. So what we are saying is that here, if you take that, so the individual ones can exist in En. You don't know that. En can be trans, Gaussian, or Gaussian. Okay, but then it will be product of all these states. Okay, it's not the summation. Okay, it will be product. And then, of course, either you can write this. Okay, you're talking about basically elementary weights. So means that combining all the states which have equal in energy, that's all. But this is for one conformation. Okay, so that has for all the conformations which have actually energy, okay, one energy. Now you apply that to all possible conformations. So this is only one conformation, right? So now you can really write these terms for all conformations, okay? And then you have to combine. That's basically partition function, very simple. Okay, but here we are segregating all the terms where we can really put them in with a property. Okay, so that's all we are doing. So basically, partition function will have all these possibilities. Okay, so you have, let's say, n. Okay, each one will have, let's say, 3 conformations. So you have n power 3. Okay, because n into 3 power n. Sorry, 3 power n. Okay, because each one will have 3 possibilities. So if it is 3 possibilities for, let's say, n-butane, pentane, it will be 3 power 2, hexane 3 power 3, and so on and so forth. If you have n monomer, then it's actually basically 3 power n terms will be there. And then you club, either you write them all independent, individually, separate elements, or combine things which belong to each other. Okay, so in this entire summation. So here now you can, this is not easy to really think. Okay, but what you can really think is that these terms in the end, so multiplied by individual monomer partition functions. Okay, so this is now it's easy to visualize at least this. Okay, so why the product? Because they are independent. Okay, so they are independent, so that's why your partition function also will be this. But if they are dependent, means that, for example, let's say if let's say monomer 1 is in this state, somehow that restricts the monomer 2 in only a defined set of energy states. So then we cannot really expression like this because they are not independent, they are dependent. Okay, so given that a monomer 1 is in which state decides where the respective monomers are. But this is a polymer, right? So individual units, we can really think that. Okay, so we are completely assuming that is free to rotate. There is no steric clashes. Okay, just like in the Gaussian chain, freely jointed chain, we assumed how basically the individual units can basically spatially overlap because it simplifies the treatment. It's exactly the same thing here. Okay, we are assuming that they're completely independent and they are identical. So the two properties: one, they are independent; second, they are identical. So only then this treatment works. But otherwise, if they are independent and if they are not identical, so then Q1 is different from Q2, is different from Q3. If they are not identical, but still independent means that you can simply multiply the partition functions if they are independent. But if they are identical as well, then Q1 is same as Q2, etc. So we are writing this expression power to the n. But otherwise, it's simply multiplication of partition functions. So this is exactly how you treat independent systems, But here we have taken the other route. We are assuming that how to get a elementary weight for a given conformation, and then how to actually sum over all the conformations. That's the main difference. Okay, because statistical mechanics itself can be an independent course, complete course, but we can't really start that kind of treatment from very basic things. So my apologies, but we have to basically rush. Only why we are doing this is that because this treatment will be useful, especially for helix coil transition, which we are going to talk about in the next.
So I'm confused about one argument.
Yes, Mithri.
That is, you are treating the chains as independent
monomer units. Correct.
Independent monomer units. But at the same time, whenever you are writing the partition function, let's say even if we consider only for the polyethylene kind of system, they come from one monomer interacting with other monomers, right?
Correct.
So you are taking somehow that they are not independent in the partition function, and then you are multiplying the partition function as if they are independent units. So that is something I got confused about.
No. For example, like we have taken En, right? Small En. Small E1 is only energy for that unit.
Okay.
Right. So this energy, for example, doesn't really include the energy of the other units.
No, but let's say if we take a polyethylene chain, if we
Correct.
rotate from
Yeah.
one of the single bonds,
Mhm.
then the Gauss conformation and everything that is coming because it's bonded to a next CH2 moiety, right?
Correct, absolutely.
And that is a part of another monomer unit.
Correct. Okay. So yes, okay, that's a good question. So now here, so in the case of this, let's say here, let's say 1 is attached to a group R1, okay, and 4 is attached to, let's say, R4.
Okay.
Okay. You see this N-butane now I converted into polymer. Okay.
Yeah.
So where the C1 is connected to, let's say, functional group R1, and C4 is R4. So we are not even worried about the identities of R1 and R4.
Okay.
Okay. So now it doesn't matter whether R1 is H or CH3 or it itself is a polyethylene. So then the energy of this around this rotation.
Yeah.
Okay, only is coming from because of this. So, okay, in essence, we are assuming that R1 and R4 are identical.
Okay.
Okay, so then you take whether the C1 in the polymer, or let's say somewhere unit in between, somewhere in the end, where it's all are identical.
Okay, so that's
Okay, so that's it, of course. That's what I said. Like the last units you cannot really take because last unit will have H1 and a very long polymer.
Yeah.
And the first unit will have, let's say, H1, H and very long. But we are not considering those small differences because in essence, this R1 and R4 is different for every monomer, right? In the polymer.
Yes, ideally.
Right. So, but we are assuming that we are not, we are taking out. We are saying that, okay, so the energy of this, let's say, trans Gauss 1 and Gauss 2 doesn't really depend on your R1 and R4. As long as they are in, let's say, trans Gauss 1 and Gauss 2. That's an assumption. Okay. So that's why we can actually write now. So this Q power N. But now let's say you strictly apply. Okay, these two, let's say my R1 and R4 are different from each other. Q1 is different from Q2, right?
Okay.
Q3, Q4. So then you stop here.
Yeah.
Okay, you stop here. Then you are saying that, okay, you are assuming that only the rotational states are identical, but energies are slightly different. So then this is valid.
Okay.
But if you further assume that, okay, I won't really worry about at this stage R1 and R4, I treat more or less identical. So then you say all these are very similar to each other. That's all. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Okay. So then I think that's all for today. And,
I have a query. Sir, I not understand that when you rotating that R2, R3, so when it changed the R1, R4, then along this also the conformation of that polymer also change.
No. So exactly. So that's why when we are saying the configuration or the conformation.
So when the conformation change, so then also is somewhere the energy also change of that monomers. Like how you assume that?
No. See, that's why we have the energy of the individual units, En. In that conformation, okay, so the nth energy will be dependent on En. I'm not saying that E1, E2, E3, E4, En are identical there. No. In a given conformation, so each monomer will be in different state. That state will have different energy, En. Okay. I'm pointing out the right thing. Yeah. So this one, okay, so in a given conformation, the nth monomer is in a different conformation state individually, right? So that energy, for example, let's say third carbon is in trans, then it is Et. Let's say 10th carbon is in gauche, then it is gauche. The energy is different, already weighed.
Okay. So why are you calling it a particular conformation? So particular conformation means this should have a so all Gauss or trans or
no. So so if you take a random polymer, okay, polyethylene, how do you guarantee that at every CH2, let's say all are trans? Can you guarantee that? No, because the energy difference. Okay, let me
So,
finish.
sir, why are you calling it a one conformation? So there should be a mixture of conformation, right? There is a ghost, there is a trans.
For a given conformation, this is the one. Now, of course, what is the probability of this conformation? I'm not telling you right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm not even talking about the probability, neither the relative probability. This is only elementary weight. Probability you have to calculate this by, okay, by the
Total
sum.
partition function.
Yeah, so we are not doing that in this case. So we are not talking about the probability. We are talking about that, let's say, a given conformation. What is the elementary weight? To calculate the probability, so then that might be very small. So then you have to actually divide this weight by the sum of all weights.
Okay, sir, now got it. So this is the, when we're talking about this conformation, then this means we take a whole polymer and then each separate units are in, say, ghost, say, trans, say,
Yes.
another.
Yes.
Okay, okay, sir, got it now.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And sir, just a small query.
Okay.
Sir, along the polymer chain, also for a short distance or long distance, there is also some short range force and long range force. And so then this will not hampering this partition functions energy here.
No, what do you mean short range force, long range force?
Like, sir, when that polymers is in, like, here you talking at the particular conformation. So let's say that is a zigzag conformation. So when I am assuming along 1 to 3 bond and along 1 to 10 bond. So when I am comparing 1 to 3 and the total 1 to 10, so then the force and the energy also be different, no?
Yeah. So obviously, again, I'm not really saying that. So we are just calculating that elementary weight. We are not saying that this is high or low. Okay, every conformation depending on, let's say, if all are in trans, then you have everything is ET. If all are in Gaussian, then you have EG. Okay, but their probabilities are different. Their energies are different. We are not really talking about that. We are talking about, okay, how to take a random conformation. Then how do you write the elementary weight? So then take all the conformations and then sum it up. You get partition function. That's all we are talking about. So we are not really worried about 1 to 10 or 1 to 20th interactions. And we are not really talking about any interactions as of now. So like I said, completely independent. Okay, independent units. And second assumption is identical. Then it will make much simpler because it's simply a product of individual. Imagine these are like, when I say individually, Q is multiplied by Qm, like these are like different molecules, so the partition function is basically a multiplication of all the partition function of individual units. That's all. Okay, kind of quote unquote ideal gas treatment.
And sir, here the EA can be greater than KT or also less than. So there are two possibilities we taken.
What do you mean? What is that KT? What?
Like, sir, in the equation e to the power minus EA by KT. Yeah. So sir, here EA can be greater than KT or less than KT. Like possible in theoretical, but
we are not talking about kinetics here. Okay.
Okay.
No kinetics.
Okay.
So we are talking about equilibrated system. Okay. Equilibrated system for the partition. Okay, guys. Thank you. See you on Friday. Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, sir.
Bye, sir.